obviously G2 won the spring and summer. They are still favorites in any split they go into. But now you can consider them at least on a bubble team as it pertains to success at Worlds. Because for the last 3 years, they've been a Final Four team, but they have not been able to break through. And now the questions are going to start being posed about the team and about whether there needs to be even more changes to be made or what is going wrong. Are these 3 years anomalies in that certain things happened in those 3 years that they just couldn't get over the hump and they are the team to do this? Or do we need to look at the team and say maybe there's a couple of pieces to change? In your opinion, what is G2's future?
That's such a loaded question. That's just a broad question, Arda. And you know, they just got eliminated from Worlds. They're in Shanghai. They're in a hotel. They're all under contract for a few years. The core is, you know, supposedly sticking together, but we've learned very quickly in esports those contracts are very easy to get traded out of. If Hootie's $1.2 million contract, 2-year, $1.2 million per year contract can get you know, bought out in like 2 months. Any contract can be traded. Any contract can be bought out, especially when you have some of the most premier talents in the world, not just the Western world, but the entire world. And there are murmurs. There are murmurs. And I mean, there's been murmurs of Perkz. What's Perkz going to do? Does Perkz want to stay in the AD carry role? We saw him excel in the mid lane role during the spring split, but Caps wasn't the best AD carry. Now we're in this position where Perkz was very selfless in giving up the mid role. We can talk about how great Perkz is as an AD carry all day. I still think he's a really good AD carry, a world-class AD carry, but his natural position, the position he is best at, is in the mid lane. Caps' best position, bar none, is the mid lane. They both kind of took, you know, cuts to their role. Caps for a split, Perkz for 3 splits to, you know, win a championship, to win the Summer's Cup, because they thought together, those two together, the two best Western players of all time, that they could win a Summer's Cup if they both took losses on their own personal game when it came to their natural positions. And last year they made the World Finals and lost in 0-3. They were outclassed by FPX in the final. They turned, a year later, another year of Perkz being able to play AD carry, at least for one split. Caps playing AD carry for a split. The team getting another year to marinate, to mature, to learn from the losses last year. And they lose in the semifinals to Damo Gaming in our class. And the question is, do you run it back? If you're Perkz, if you're Caps, are you ready to, you know, take more self-losses to try to win a world championship when you've been outclassed the last 2 years by 2 really amazing Asian teams? And I'm not saying G2 can't win a world championship with this roster. They can. The talent's there. If the meta is right, if the team is playing at their best, they are as talented as any team at the world championship. This meta didn't fit them perfectly, but it fit them well enough to make the top 4. And if you're Caps and if you're Perkz, specifically Perkz, you've taken on this role as AD carry, but you are a natural mid laner, do you do it one more year? Do you say, let's run it back? Or do you want to, you've had a rough year, obviously, the loss of his father, the kind of the strain of playing so many tournaments in a row. Again, you have to remember that this team plays all the playoff games, all the international tournaments, because they've been so dominant the last 2 years, especially Caps, who's been playing in everything the last 3 years. And do you run it back? Arda, if you were Perkz, would you continue playing that AD carry role and playing out of position, not your best position, for a world title that may never come? Would you possibly give it more prime years to play a position where you don't feel you are as good at as your natural position? Because I think you can argue if he's an amazing top level AD carry, I believe he is, but I still believe in my heart of hearts that Perkz is a natural mid laner, and that is where Perkz does his best. And that's the same thing of Caps.
It's such a tricky situation.
Yeah, it's so difficult.
You know, it's like these are 2 great players, and one of them has to play their unnatural role, and you keep hitting a wall for 3 straight years as G2 as a whole. But like Perkz and Caps now have had multiple years of unfortunate outcomes according to them. And now you got to wonder, are they on the bubble? It's just crazy to think that. I wonder what era of like, you go back to that Hooney contract and you tell me, because I don't know. I only know the numbers that are out there. I haven't necessarily heard what contracts are like in League of Legends, right? I've heard like the $400,000 average LCS salary, and obviously Hooney's salary and buyouts for Vulcan, et cetera, right? But like, I wonder if that Hooney contract was so landmark and so substantial, how many players, especially ones that are expiring, are going to look at that and say, I deserve that, right? That may not have said that before. So I wonder what the economics of contracts are going to be and how much they will have been pushed up based on Hooney's contract and things like that alone. Like, where are we going? And what will free agency look like as a result?
It's also a situation where if you are the G2 brass and if you want to, sell either perks or caps, you're going to make a boatload. You will probably break records for a buyout. And with that money you get back from either perks or caps, you could probably go out and get an upset. You could probably go out and get upset for your 80 carry. You could probably get whatever 80 carry you want with the money you get from either perks or caps, and you would create a maybe more traditional, super team with upset or another high-class 80 carry in that role. If you want to go that way, if Perks wants to play mid lane for another team, or if Caps wants to play mid lane for another team, and you want to stick with Perks, because Perks, as we've said along for forever, is the franchise player, where Caps is the ace player of the team, Perks is the face. He's the quasi de facto son of Carlos. He's the person that you see being, high management in G2 in 5-10 years of, running a high, he's an executive in the business, similar to a Faker or a Bjergsen at TSM and SKT or T1 now. So it's just a very, very difficult situation where, if Fnatic's like, oh, you Caps, we'll give you everything. We'll give you everything for him.